And although we're talking about a specific destination in the form of Portugal today, it is, I think, going to be a broader conversation about the other passion that I am finally finding time to pursue, which is the passion for solo travel and for immersive travel. And we're talking about this in the context of a colleague and his recent visit to Portugal, which was not a sort of a quick in, quick out bucket list, check on the major sites. Barry Mare was working as my producer last week, but he's back in studio this week as a guest to chat to us about what sounds like a really incredible, I'm going to use the term cultural experience, because Barry was there for a long stretch and really made a huge effort to immerse himself in the community he found himself in, and as a result has clearly fallen in love not just with the country but with its people, its food and its music, but also I think a little bit with himself all over again. Barry, I'm looking forward to chatting to you about the experience, but we're going to start with some music to set the scene. Those who don't know, they're fado. That's what you were just listening to, and I'm thinking back to an interview several years ago with somebody who was, I think, doing a PhD in musicology on the study of fado, and spoke to me, Barry, of longing and of this music expressing something almost inexpressible in words around longing. And I know for you that song is particularly meaningful because it represents a longing for a particular part of Portugal that you loved.
So much so. Hey, Pippa, and thanks for having me back. That particular song is called Saudade de Coimbra, and that song was written about a longing for Coimbra. Saudade, just quick, such an interesting Portuguese word, which is one word that encompasses the feelings of melancholy, longing, nostalgia, all in one word. It's a beautiful Portuguese word that there cannot be translated. And so that's song Saudade de Coimbra, longing for Coimbra, which is the town where I spent most of my time.
Now, what was it that took you to Portugal? What was there a particular family connection or a site you wanted to see, a food you wanted to taste? What made you settle on that destination?
A friend initially. I wasn't aware just of how awesome it would be, but my best mate from school, we met when we were 11 in grade 8. He moved there 10 years ago when he was 18 with his mom, and we've kept in contact ever since. And so when I wanted to travel, finally take this thing and do it, I thought, well, I have one person in Portugal. Might as well start there. And that's why Portugal.
And why so long in Portugal? Because you were there for a really extended period. Did you get there and just go, I never want to leave, I'm going to stay and explore everything here?
Well, initially I thought I would, because you can get a 90-day tourist visa. And I was like, I'm going to use every one of those days. I don't know how, but if I'm allowed to be there for 90 days, it'll be 90 days. And I thought I would do many countries. When I landed, that was sort of the plan. And then I just didn't manage to leave Portugal. I got so stuck. So I knew I would be going for long, but I didn't know that I would do just Portugal for that long.
Okay, so the visa in question, let's talk some logistics, is a Schengen visa.
That's it.
And if you get one, as you say, you feel like you need to exploit the hell out of that thing because of the cost and the anxiety involved in getting one. But Barry, to get to one place and find there is so much to explore just in this one country, particularly such a small country as Portugal is, speaks volumes about the way you were traveling. Let's talk a little bit about the sort of the sense of the traveller and the slow traveller and the immersive traveller that you became.
I arrived there with no plan. I booked an Airbnb for 2 days only and then didn't know where I would stay after that. Just kind of open to see where I'd end up. And and as you call it, a slow traveller. So I took my time and I spoke to people and I met people and I knew I wanted to do Lisbon and Porto, and my friend lives in Coimbra. So I knew I'd see those three, but I had no plan for how. And slowly but surely I made my way from Lisbon through Coimbra up to Porto for days and then at weeks at a time. Or I would realize how much I loved Porto and I went back twice just to go visit. So the list just kind of got longer and longer of things, people and places in Portugal. And I was like, I can't leave. I can't, there's this festival because they have many religious holidays there. So like São João is a time where there's so much celebration in the streets of Porto. The whole Porto turns into a parade, and if it's something to see. And the same with Sant Antonio in Lisbon. And I didn't know about any of these days till I got there, and I realized I landed in a very celebratory time.
Fantastic. So coincidentally, you found yourself experiencing a whole lot more. Now, as I said at the start, and as you've just described, this was never intended to be a sort of a tick box experience that I'm going to go to Portugal, I'm going to go and see the Tower of Belém, I'm going to go and eat the famous pastéis and then move on somewhere else. What sort of were you looking for Was it just a sense of adventure? Was it just to see things new? Obviously to catch up with a friend. Did you have a sort of intention in your mind of what you hoped personally to glean from this trip?
No, funny, and not at all.
Yeah.
And so I worked with, and if I may give a shameless punt, I worked with a travel expert that we've had on air here, Paula Martini, who wrote a book called Travel with Purpose.
Okay.
And I read that book, and it sort of preaches leaving all expectation behind. And I really did. So I went with an expectancy for nothing. I knew I would see a mate, but I had no idea why I was going or for that. And the length of time was, tickets are expensive and the visa stressful. And so again, if I can do 90 days, I will. It's still only one round ticket.
Yeah.
So and so I just went. I really had zero expectations or wants or needs. I was just like, what will happen?
What will happen? And what happened is a complete cultural immersion. And you did this very deliberately once you realized, I'm in love with this place and I want to stay and spend the time here and just completely immerse myself. Barry, what did that look like for you? I mean, a cultural immersion. You made a huge effort in terms of exposing yourself, not just to the big tourist sites. Tell us a little bit more about sort of how you set about doing that.
Exactly that. Moving away from the big tourist sites, right? Lisbon is amazing, and Bairro Alto and those, it's great, but it's also very touristy, and it's nothing you can't really feel here at Cape Town's waterfront. But when you go off the beaten track a little to towns that I've never heard of before, like Figueira de Foz and Estrela, and Fatima is more known but still very small, you are dealing with a more raw cultural experience, less polished, very much more genuine. And so going into these smaller towns and meeting locals who would then invite me to come and bribe, well, they don't bribe, but we call it that, but to go with them to visit their family on the weekend. And the next thing, I would be sitting at a table in a town I'd never heard of with a Portuguese family who don't speak any English, and the food is stuff I've never tasted, piglet, and we just said sardines, less popular, but lots of piglet. So losing the touristy track and just venturing deeper in is how.
How did you cope from a language perspective? Because you didn't have Portuguese, or did you have any
Zero.
going into this?
A
No?
little.
bit, yeah.
I have Duolingo. And luckily phones are handy. A lot of the younger Portuguese people speak English, the older ones not. And so sign language, eye contact, pointing at what you want. There was a lot of that.
Okay.
And eventually you pick up enough Portuguese to order your coffee and get your breakfast and make your way.
Okay. Now, you were the one who suggested we start the interview with some fado. What was it about the music and the way music is woven into the culture that was so special to you?
Just the fact that fado is so important there. And fado is not just a touristy thing. Fado is deep into the Portuguese culture, especially older Portuguese people will have their favorite fado. And the instrument is so interesting. You've probably seen the guitar, the Portuguese guitar, which is a pear-shaped guitar. And it's unique to Portugal with such a unique sound. And that fado music and that fado culture is very, as I said, deep in the culture. What we just heard was fado from Coimbra, and they'll tell you that that's where fado came from, but there's debates about that. Fado from Lisbon sounds totally different and is normally way more upbeat, and the Coimbra fado is more somber, if you will. So it's huge in their culture, and as I said, there are arguments over where it comes from within Portugal. And I enjoyed the fado, and you can go to, most of the local pubs or so. Well, eventually you'll hear some fado. You can't miss it.
Yeah. Just for those coming in midway to this conversation, with me in studio, CapeTalk producer Barry Mare, who not too long ago spent an extensive period traveling all over Portugal and immersing himself in Portuguese culture. And when I asked him to talk about traveling to Portugal today, he said to me, I do, but I don't, it's not going to be a conversation about see this site, visit that museum. I want to talk really about what this experience did for me and the kind of travel that I found myself doing. And let's talk a little bit about what it did for you to be traveling for that length of time on your own, Barry, because it's something that I do for sort of every couple of years. Once I've saved up enough, I do a trip on my own for a week where I go and immerse myself in usually just one city with maybe a day side trip somewhere, completely on my own. And for me, it's about not having to talk to anybody, sorry, but not having to worry about what anybody else wants, when they want to eat, when they want to go to the loo, who wants to stay in a museum. It's about saying, if I'm here and I love what I'm looking at, I'm going to stay for 4 hours because I can. And it is about sort of reclaiming a sense of myself and my wants and needs, but it's also just there's there's a sort of liberation in the independence of it for me. What was it for you that you discovered about yourself in traveling alone for so long?
I so resonate with what you just said. It's that liberating feeling. It's the sense of, well, I'm here completely by myself, responsible for no one but me. I don't have to worry about anyone but what I want to do in this moment. And what I think solo traveling gives you that you will never get when you travel with people is spontaneity. And you said you take a break from talking to people. I talk to everyone. I talk to every stranger I can find that wants to talk to me and make friends with them and end up at someone's granny's house next Saturday because we're eating piglet. Yep. And it was that sense of just being able to go with the flow, and you'd never imagine where that could bring you. So there was that part of it. And also, yes, this very deep question of who are you when you're not surrounded by your community and when you're not surrounded by your culture. Because I think we are and act in ways that are normal for the culture and society we are in. When you remove yourself to a new culture and society, who are you then? When you are not expected to act to any norms, because you're the foreigner. You can present whatever you want, really, and that's just normal now. So it's a bit of rediscovery and how you introduce yourself to this new world, and that can be anyone. And that person might as well be more confident, more friendly, more this or more that. So I was able to explore parts of my personality that I think I would be more hesitant to do, maybe.
Interesting.
I don't know why.
Okay. I wonder if that resonates with others listening today who've had the experience of traveling on your own. Do you relate to what Barry's just said about how it enables you to be in a new place, removed from all the ways by which you would normally define yourself, I guess is what you're saying, to some extent. WhatsApp's to 072 567 1567. And if you also want to share some thoughts on travel to Portugal, if you've been lucky enough to go there and would like to flag something that you found particularly memorable, we'd love to hear from you as well. Right, a few logistics in terms of, as we've already mentioned, South Africans need a Schengen visa to get there. Yeah. In terms of getting there, sort of how accessible was it? Were you able to fly direct from Cape Town? Did you have to go via Joburg? Who did you fly with? That sort of thing.
Not direct. On my first trip, this 3-month trip that we're in fact discussing, because I've been twice in the last 6 months, it's just that nice. The first trip I flew with Emirates because I found a good ticket through them and flew through Dubai, which now would be a terrible idea. On my last trip, I flew Angolan Airlines TAG.
Yes.
I want to mention, maybe also a shameless pun, Angola got a new airport in Luanda very recently. It only opened in October. The old airport got a bit of a bad rap and people were avoiding flying through Angola. Currently, it's great. And so my flight through Angola with TAG, it cost 11,500, which is also on the more affordable side. Yeah. It was great. And the airport was great and the flight was great. And I really can say that that's a good option and more affordable sometimes than Emirates. Sorry, Emirates.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. I had a look. I went online this morning to say, as a matter of interest, let me see what the flights are looking like at the moment. And it's on the more affordable side. I mean, you were talking about flying to Europe. There is no getting away from the fact that it's going to be expensive. Yeah. But the flights are... This morning I looked at a price for early May and a price for early July. The early May flight, there was an option at 12,500 Rand to sort of 14 or 15. TAG coming up by far the most affordable on those. July, I was thinking, well, it's going to be at least double or triple that. And surprisingly, it wasn't. You can still right now get a flight for 15,000 up to about 18,000 Rand return for peak season.
From what I understand, and I could be wrong, it is one of the most affordable European countries to fly to. I don't know why. Maybe it's because of the Angola route. I don't know why. But if I compare it to every other European city, because before Portugal, I was contemplating many places. And Lisbon was by far the most affordable flight to a European country.
So part of the reasoning as well, get your foot in the door there and then hop off wherever you need to from there, except in Barry's case, no hopping happened at all.
No, just between
Apart
cities.
from hopping within the country. Now, that's another thing to mention. How easy is it to move around within Portugal?
Yeah, super, and very affordable, right? So they've got in the big cities, they've got the underground metro, or, what you would, they call that the metro. Yeah. You've got your more regional buses that will take you from major city to major city, as well as trains, which are very effective. And then obviously Ubers and Bolts and all of that. But regional, national travel, super easy, very affordable. You can basically get from Porto to Lisbon, which is a 400-kilometer distance, for under 10 euros, under $200.
Good grief.
8 euros maybe, and you've gotten from Lisbon to Porto.
That is incredible.
It was very affordable.
Sure.
It really was.
Okay. I'm about to travel in 3 weeks' time, and the prices I'm looking at for transfers are nowhere near that ballpark.
Really?
They've got an extra digit on that price
Oh,
in many
really?
cases. Yeah, so that's remarkable. Now, I mean, so cost effectiveness, definitely. Obviously, you are still contending with the rand-euro exchange rate. There's no getting away from that. But from what you've said, Barry, in terms of being able to, especially the kind of travel you did a little bit off the beaten track, I would
Yeah.
imagine finding food in local cafes and when you're not having lunch at somebody's granny's house.
Exactly, yeah.
Relatively affordable?
Absolutely. I say comparable with here. And even with that rand-euro exchange, I found stuff like, excuse me, but beer cost less than here sometimes.
Okay.
Pay like €1.20 for a big beer, $30. Grocery stores pretty much level with here as well.
Okay.
Accommodation less than Cape Town CBD, absolutely more affordable than Cape Town.
Wow.
You can get an Airbnb for less than you can here. So it's not more expensive going to Lisbon than it is going to Cape Town.
Okay, that's an interesting perspective. Thank you. Alan writing in saying, in his experience, Portuguese people are so caring and friendly. I remember a family sharing sardines asada while I was pitching my tent in Quatera. No English, just approached me with a plate of food. I absolutely loved Portugal, is Alan's comment from Notuk. Alan, thank you for sharing that memory. So I'm smiling at the sardines. Barry and I were talking about sardines because I mentioned to him when he walked into studio that I waitressed in a Portuguese restaurant for several years as a student. And for me, the smell of Portugal is always going to be the smell of roasted sardines on a bed of salt with green peppers and olives on top of them.
That's a beautiful
and it's an
smell.
acquired set.
Yes, completely so. The food is brilliant, and what Alan was saying about the culture, so true. Really, they're very warm people, and especially with tourists, I'd say, really welcoming. People who don't speak a word of English will genuinely go out their way and try, which you don't get in a lot of other countries.
Yeah.
No, really warm culture.
Thank you for sharing such beautiful insights on it. And I can see some emails starting to come in from other listeners who've been there. I'll share a couple of those after the Eyewitness News, I promise. So if you want to slide in another one, please do pop through a WhatsApp during the news. So Barry, I mean, I was going to ask, would you go back again? You've already been back again since the trip we described.
And I will be back again.
And you will be again?
Yeah.
That kind of
100%.
place.
I'll go back to Coimbra and hopefully one day just keep going back there. I'll always go back to Coimbra.
And eat piglet and listen to fado.
Exactly. Exactly that.
Barry Mare, it's been a beautiful, reflective kind of travel segment. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing it with us today.
Appreciate it.
CapeTalk producer Barry Mare.